What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of our /IDontWorkHereLady, where people get mistaken for being workers by some real oblivious people. So let's begin. Dressed inappropriately for a job I don't have. Last weekend it was very warm for this part of the country. I was wearing a tank top and some jean shorts, so I had a lot of skin showing. Nothing indecent though, just bare arms and legs, and I might have had some cleavage showing. My husband and I were going to have a barbecue for some friends of his, so I went down to the grocery store to pick up a few final items. While I'm looking at the beans, trying to decide how much we need, I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around to come face to face with an older lady who was definitely overdressed for the weather. I ask politely, "May I help you?" And she replies, "Don't you think you're dressed inappropriately for this job?" I was confused and so replied, "Well, yes, but I'm not at my job right now. I work in a hospital as a lab technician." She scoffed and said, "Well, we'll see what Dave has to say about this." Dave is apparently the manager and a friend of hers, so she races off to find him, and I'm just looking at beans, still trying to figure out how much we need. Just as I put a couple cans into my basket, the lady comes down the aisle with who I assume is Dave, wearing a manager-type apron. She's pointing at me and saying, "Do you let your employees wear things like that? It's shameful." Dave looks at me, starts to look at me like he knows me, then shakes his head and tells the lady, "She doesn't work here." The lady looks at me and tells Dave, "Of course she works here. I've seen her stocking shelves and working at the register. It's absolutely shameful that you allow her to wear that on the floor." Dave looks at me, then as if a light bulb went off in his head, takes his walkie-talkie and calls for someone named Linda to report to whatever aisle we were on. The lady is still berating him for what I'm wearing. Again, nothing wrong with it, just showing a lot of skin for it being such a hot day. When Linda comes into the aisle, I was shocked. She looked exactly like me when I was back in high school. It was like looking 10 years back in time. And I'm sure for her, she got a glimpse of what she would look like 10 years from now. Linda walks up to us asking what's up, and the lady quietly says, "My mistake," and starts to walk back down the aisle. But she has to get a last jab in, so she turns around and tells me, "Do you actually go in public like that? That's just wrong, tempting men with your nearly naked body." I'm married, by the way. The only man I have to tempt is my husband, and that's not hard to do. Dave had me and Linda pose together for a picture. He was also astonished at how close we looked to each other. This isn't my jurisdiction. Also, that's not a crime here. A couple years back, I was employed as a security officer for my previous college. It helped boost my resume and opened up some job opportunities. When I went home to the West Coast for Christmas break this particular year, a friend of mine offered me a short gig to earn some extra holiday money. He helped run events like concerts, art galleries, etc. He hired me on as security for a week-long convention of some sort. I think it had something to do with financial advising or something, but that's not important. I had brought my uniform and gear back home with me knowing that this was lined up, so that means a black polo with security in bright white letters on the back, tan cargo pants, boots, duty belt, with handcuffs, flashlight, gloves, radio, all that fun stuff. Kinda hard to mistake me for anything else when I was in uniform, but apparently not hard enough. I got off one particular shift at around 2200 one night. Me and a friend decided to hit up the local Walmart to grab some snacks. Mind you, I'm still wearing all my gear. I was picking out a particularly tasty looking bag of chips. Sour cream and onion is objectively the best, by the way, when I felt someone tap my shoulder. "Excuse me." I turn and see a middle-aged woman about 5'4", white hair, standing there. She looked extremely nervous, almost shaking. "Can I help you?" I ask. There's a man over in the other aisle. I think he's on drugs," she said. I get that familiar "oh crap" feeling in the pit of my gut. Mind you, when someone tells me a person is, quote, "on drugs," I imagine they're probably tweaking on meth or PCP. I kind of look towards the next aisle over and raise an eyebrow. She nods, still looking utterly petrified. I casually saunter over and peek around the corner. Sure enough, there's a guy standing there staring blankly at a wall of cookies. But then, my first red flag goes up. He's not doing anything really odd, just another guy searching for snacks. But then I catch a really strong whiff of burnt weed, probably from a good 15 feet away. He glances over at me briefly, eyes totally bloodshot. This guy is stoned out of his mind. I kind of laugh to myself and go back to the woman. Ma'am, I think he's fine. Probably has a bad case of the munchies is all. Immediately, this chick goes from timid and scared to absolutely furious. I don't care what he is. He's on drugs and needs to be arrested immediately. Mind you, the state in which the story takes place had just legalized marijuana. Ma'am, he's not currently breaking the law. And even if he was, I'm not a police officer. I don't even work here, I said. That doesn't matter. He's a danger to everyone in here, and you have to apprehend him right now. I'm sorry, but I won't do that. He's not hurting anyone, and I can't do anything either way. Call the manager if you have an issue. Fine, I will. She storms off, presumably to do just that. I finish up my shopping, meet with my buddy, and we go check out. As we're about to leave, I see 2 cops walking in, and approach said inebriated individual and talk to him for a moment. They chat. Both cops shrug and turn around to leave. Well, guess who shows up? Yup, Psycho Lady. She comes running over to them and starts screaming about how they're not doing their jobs, letting a dangerous criminal walk away, and that she'd have them both fired. Eventually, one of them had enough and told her they would arrest her for causing a disturbance if she continued. Eventually, she saw the light and just stamped off, muttering about the moral corruption ruining this country. She saw me leaving and gave me the nastiest, dirtiest look I could fathom. I just laughed and waved goodbye to Stoner Dude on the way out. You'd have thought the seeing eye dog was a clue. This happened almost 10 years ago. I'm legally blind. I have been for pretty much forever. We found out about my eye condition when I was 11, and from that point on, I had extra classes and programs teaching me how to live life with really poor or no vision. In my senior year of high school, I had one last sort of blind life boot camp. It was pretty simple, with most of the classes being on stuff like cooking, laundry, cleaning, and other stuff. It was mostly geared to helping newly blind people adapt, so I would finish early a lot and wind up going to the grocery store to pick up dinner. At this time, I traveled with my service dog, Mikey, a big black lab. He wore a special harness, and it was pretty clear to anyone with half a brain that he wasn't a normal pet. Usually classes didn't have any sort of dress code. One day though, it was a self-advocacy day, and we were supposed to do mock job interviews to talk about the subject of when to disclose you have a disability in the job application process. So I and the other students were wearing more professional-looking stuff. I was in a blue button shirt and khakis. I finished early and went to the grocery store to get dinner as usual. I was putting a bag of frozen chicken patties into my basket when I heard a voice behind me. It's about time they made you dress more professional. With what vision I have at the time, I see this person in front of me. She was a bit taller than me, a little heavy, and had gray hair that came down to her neck, in a style that reminds me of Little Lad from those Berries and Cream Skittles commercials. I'll call her Little Lady. Turning around, I say, "Sorry?" And the lady says, "I said I'm glad they started making you wear more decent clothing here. Most of the time, you look like you get dressed in the dark." "I kinda do," I respond. "Why the hell would you do that?" "I don't really have a choice. Matching colors isn't my strong suit." By this point, I thought that the sunglasses and seeing eye dog were enough of a clue, so I started to walk away. It hadn't occurred to me yet that she thought I worked there. "What does that mean? Hey, don't walk away from me. I'm not done with you yet." "Excuse me?" "I said get back here. I'm talking to you." "I don't want to talk to you anymore," I said. The lady proceeds to try to grab me by the wrist that's holding my groceries. I dropped my basket and jerked my arm away hard. I could feel Mikey jump because I was tense and because of the sound of the basket hitting the floor. Shouting, the lady says, "Ow, you little shit, I'll have you fired." And that's when I realized she thought I worked there. Not the rudeness, not the assault, but the threats to take a job I didn't have. So I started to shout back, "Get the f*** away from me. I don't work here. Don't touch me again. Don't come near me or I'll call the f***ing cops." It was loud enough that everyone in the echoey store probably heard. All the chatter from the other customers and employees died down pretty quick. The lady, carried away by the momentum of her power trip, continues ranting and threatening and following me as I walk away, but keeps her distance. My dog is pulling as hard as he can to get me away from what he thinks is danger. I even left my basket of food behind. At some point, the lady ceases her following me, and I left the store without buying anything. I didn't go back to that store again. I don't know who she was or why she felt entitled to being able to harass me. but I hope she choked on whatever she bought there next. You think I'm a cop? Way back around 30 years ago, I had just moved to the big city after graduating from college to start my first real job as a computer programmer. Not really knowing anyone and being quite introverted, I spent a lot of time in my local arcade playing video games. I was a rocker, still am, so had long hair and regularly wore a leather jacket, skin-tight black jeans and Doc Martens. A lot of other rockers hung out there and there was usually heavy metal music playing. I would go there most evenings and would often hang out with some of the other rockers and talk about our favorite bands, etc. I had been going there around a month or two when one day as I was coming in, the guy in the change booth, the manager I guess, called me over. He says, "See those guys over there?" Pointing discreetly. Yeah? I'm wondering where this was going and if I was in trouble somehow. He says, "I think they're pushers." You mean drug pushers?" "Yeah, obviously." "Okay. So?" "So what?" I asked. "Are you going to do anything about it? I don't want any trouble here." "What can I do? I don't know those guys." "But that's why you're here, isn't it?" "Excuse me?" "You're an undercover cop." "What? What the hell gave you that impression?" "The other rocker said you were." No, I'm not." "Are you sure? They seemed pretty certain. They said that was why they were hanging around with you." I'm thinking, what the hell? And I say, no, I'm certain." "I guess you would say that." Wink. "I'm not a cop, undercover or otherwise." "Okay." Smiles and winks again. "Okay, I'm gonna go now." So I turned around and left. It seems that in the month or so that I'd been going there, a rumor spread among the rockers that I was an undercover police officer, and everyone seemed to know this except me. Suffice to say, I never went back, mainly out of embarrassment, which very likely added credence to the rumors as they probably assumed my cover had been blown. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel for more. So take care and I'll see you next time.